Let's hear about how Nucoro and Melanie help financial institutions develop new investing and saving solutions using fintech. Welcome to the Fintech Files. Melanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
As we're both in the UK and we're slowly getting out of the lockdown, but not completely, may I start by asking you the traditional question by now is how's the crisis affected you professionally and also personally?
I think personally it's been an adjustment. I live in a relatively small flat. I live with my boyfriend. He's working too. We work on the same table, so I've had to send him next door whilst I'm doing this. So a bit of an adjustment in terms of ways of working. But we're both counting ourselves very lucky that we're still very busy and have lots to do, and must be much harder kind of not working during this period. Professionally, I think we were set up quite well for remote working. We kind of have a remote first kind of approach. So everybody already had their kit, had the freedom to work from home when they wanted to. So that wasn't kind of a culture shock for us. And then I guess more on the business side, there was a bit of a lull, when lockdown happened, we had those few weeks where everyone's kind of minds were a bit blown. And, as particularly, we work with large institutions, that's a massive shift for them into remote work. So I kind of went a bit quiet and, now it's actually been steadily building back up to pre-COVID levels. And we are starting to get back to normal a bit now.
Great. I do hear the story quite a lot. I guess it's the type of people and organization I talk to, but I guess it's also, even for large organizations, it's been easier or actually able to do things that they would never even had imagined, or trading remotely or things like that. So that shows how, the digitalization has been helped, but it was ready to go, I think.
Yeah, no, it definitely accelerated, I think, some of those internal blockers which were there before in terms of the technology. We worked with a lot of people before who would say, no, we can't use that kind of software. And then suddenly they're scrambling to get that software available for their employees to use. So, yeah, I think that's been a bit of a change as well.
So you're CMO of Nucoro, and we'll talk about that and your role. But first of all, I'm interested to see how you started in marketing. As I see, you've studied psychology. So what made you choose this career? And maybe then why fintech after that?
Yeah, sure. So I did psychology at uni mainly because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I kind of wanted to straddle the, science and creative arts. And I thought psychology would be a good blend of that. And I was kind of interested in marketing, didn't really want to study it. I loved, the 90s adverts. I was looking back on a few today, actually, kind of the Reebok belly's gonna get you and Dr. Pepper, what's the worst that can happen, all of these. And I remember watching them and being like, oh, it'd be quite cool to be part of that world. And then my first job out of uni, I managed to get a job at Mindshare, which is a WPP agency. And I was directly put onto the American Express account, and that started my continuous journey in financial services. So complete luck of the draw on that one, but very lucky that I got put on that account at the start.
All right. And you mentioned mixture of science and creativity. I guess you can get plenty of that in marketing, or at least that's what I see as in terms of personal growth on marketing. So now, so you moved from finance to fintech. What attracted you to the sector? I think Nucoro, before Nucoro, you're more in traditional financial marketing,
Yeah.
right?
So I did traditional financial marketing. I went and worked at American Express client side as well. And then I decided that I just wanted to figure out marketing from scratch. So I left Amex and joined a startup on day one with the founders. I think all we had was a name and an idea, and kind of built that and developed it. And they went on to get funding, and that was a brilliant experience. And then I was kind of recruited for the role at Exo Investing, which is part of Nucoro. And I didn't know anything about investment management, wealth management. It had gone completely over my head. I actually had tried to take a stock trading course, which had gone horribly wrong. I didn't understand anything. It completely put off life. And I was like, well, this just isn't for me. And then I come into this world and, we're building technology to help people to be able to invest. And I realized that actually the world you see from the outside is very different on the inside. And that kind of really made me want to be a part of that change in the culture. And I believe that that's really where fintech comes from, right? It rose out of the 2008 financial crash, really to give better tools, services, experiences for customers to be able to take more control of their finances. So I'm so glad that I get to be part of that journey and really help people take control of their money.
Now that's really interesting what you mentioned about the definition of fintech. I feel like that ages me a bit, but ahead of the 2008, it was all about financial engineering and about how to make, I don't know, more complex products and then sell them on. Whereas now we're talking about financial technology, fintech, and it's really about making it, well, I don't know, easier, better, eventually for the end user. And let's talk now about, so how does that fit into now? What does Nucoro do, and how does that fit into that?
So, I mean, our mission from the start and everything that we wanted to create was, help people take control of their financial future. And we started out, we launched Exo Investing, which is a D2C robo-advisor solution. First of its kind, everybody got individual portfolios that were managed on a daily basis, really brilliant, high-tech experience for investors. But there are lots of challenges that come with launching a robo-advisor. And a lot of those are, a lot of people don't know about investing and they don't know how to do it and they find it quite overwhelming. A lot of the education is missing. I think sometimes we get stuck in our little fintech bubble and think everybody knows what we're working on and what's going on. And then I'll have a conversation with a friend I haven't seen in a while and mention fintech and they're like, what's that? And I'm like, oh yeah, this is my world, not everyone's. So we really wanted to make sure that we could have as big an impact as we possibly can. So now we sell our technology to enable banks, insurance firms, asset managers to be able to give that technology to their customers. So it's all about enabling innovation within traditional institutions that otherwise would really struggle because of legacy tech and culture and bureaucratic processes. And really focusing on that win-win scenario of, hey, you've got this massively loyal customer base, you've got so much incredible data, you've got an incredible brand, let us do the investment tech. Like, that's where our expertise is, that's what we can offer you, and create a really powerful partnership that at the end of the day really empowers customers to take control of their finances. And that's our kind of goal here at Nucoro.
Great. And just to be specific, could you tell us a little bit more about who your customers are? Not necessarily the names, but examples of what types of customers you're dealing with. I mean, institutions.
Yeah, so I mean, a key area for us is banks across Europe. So whether that be kind of tier 2, tier 1. So the retail banking space is a really interesting play for us because you've got so many people who are very focused on saving and haven't really been engaged with from an investment perspective. So there's a huge opportunity there in order to deliver a new revenue stream for the bank, but also help people grow wealth. So that story is kind of playing really well. And I think that's a really good opportunity for us to help people.
And I want to get back a bit to your role and your title. And I see that previously, I think in another role, you were head of growth, and then it was called marketing, which maybe it's just a semantic thing, but how do you see the role of marketing, let's say, in the overall growth of the company? What's the role you play, especially in a B2B environment where typically it's more sales driven?
Yeah, it's been interesting because my background is actually B2C. So I started the organization when we launched it as a B2C, and then we launched the B2B arm. So I really had to kind of learn on the go of, how B2B works and what my role would be within that. But I see it as a massive kind of blessing, actually, because, B2C, you are so focused on the customer. It's really about what you can offer them, how you can help them, what their challenges are. And I think that's really important to translate into the B2B environment, particularly within a sales-led organization, because whilst you are, selling to the business, they've got their customers front of mind. So that B2B2C play is actually even more important than the B2B one. And then I think the adjustment from, B2C, where marketing leads everything and it sits at the top and it, leads on that strategy, a bit of a shift in terms of working with sales, where, now we're a sales-led organization, because that's where, we need to be bringing those deals in and building those high quality relationships. And I think you then focus a lot more then on, the stories and the experiences and the translation of the product marketing into a way that works with 10 different stakeholders who've got 10 different things on their agenda. They've got 5 different motivations and where they sit within the organization. So I think bringing all of that together as an aligned strategy and not a siloed one has been a really key part of what we've been developing over the last kind of 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I think now there's no doubt that B2B is trying to learn from the B2C side, but they typically have, the organization is built in a different way, so they kind of try to put, well, late in the day marketing on top, whereas I guess the blessing in your case, it grew, and then you adapted. So probably a lot of challenges, but I can see the benefit of it. And also, what do you think compared to another? Let's put it like this: compared to another competitor, B2B in a similar space, that probably doesn't have a CMO, because that's also interesting for me to notice that you are a CMO, so definitely sitting at the executive level. How do you think your approach? It's a bit of a hypothetical question, but how do you think that helps the sales compared to a more traditionally sales-driven, typical B2B organization, where it's more about getting the phones and ringing and then getting the deal and somehow getting through the door with minimum marketing support?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it is, a privilege really to have a marketing support team when you're a sales-led organization, because we have the resources to be able to create really high quality, high value content that support building that relationship. I think it gets harder, when you're under pressure, literally just to, spray and pray and get those meetings in, and you don't spend kind of, even a couple of weeks being like, hey, look, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. Here's the kind of resources that people that we've worked with in the past have found really useful. We think you might too, because we've had a chat and we understand what your challenges are. And it shifts the conversation from, I just want to make money from you, to let me help you with your challenge. Let me understand you. Let me give you all of this kind of value adding content and experience. Let me be your guide through this process, because, we are talking about digital transformation here. It's not easy. It takes a long time. It's very complex. So you really want to work with a partner who gets you and understands you and can go on that journey with you. And I think that's what really helps when you have marketing rather than just pure sales, is that journey becomes much more kind of educational and value adding. And, a lot of people, when you talk about marketing and you look at the funnel, and, the funnel doesn't apply necessarily in these situations, because there's so many people involved at different parts of the journey, that you need to have that kind of toolkit for any part that they're going down and any challenge that they have. And without a marketing team really translating the feedback from the sales team into that kind of high quality content that answers all of their kind of problems, I think it does make that general kind of nurture a bit harder to do. And I would say it also supports, I guess, the brand building. We're relatively new. We need to kind of be seen in the space. We need to be credible within the space. Every experience that somebody has with our brand now is really, really important. And for that to be a positive one and a value adding one, rather than we just want to do a deal with you, I think is, really good kind of approach for the long term as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, coming from a sales background, but that was a while ago, and I couldn't imagine now doing a similar job. But I see, let's say, ex-colleagues, and not to mention companies or anyone, but they've fully embraced the digitalization and the changing nature of the work, but still have the similar approach in terms of making the deals, etc., which I think is, they're learning now that it's getting harder and harder, right? I haven't picked up a phone when someone tries to sell me something for a long, long time, whereas something I used to do. So I really see where you're coming from. And you mentioned quite a few things about the toolkit, so we're going to go into that now. But first, I still wanted to have one last question about your career and your profile as a woman in fintech, which is, fairly, I wouldn't say rare, but not still a minority, let's say. And we know as well that women in general are possibly not taking the same part in the finances that male do. There's also some inequality there. How do you approach that as well?
Yeah, I think there's, women in fintech. I think we've got a fabulous network of incredible women now within this industry. And I think, it is moving in the right direction. But I guess my real focus is how to get more women investing. This is a fundamental way to grow wealth, and women in general are starting to make more money, but we've got a lot of market forces working against us. We've got the gender pay gap. We do the majority of the unpaid care work. We have the pension gap. We're dealing with the advice gap as well. And we also live longer than men. So there's a lot of pressure to make all of those pounds to work a lot harder for us. And I think this is the importance of technology, right? Is that we as Nucoro, and we provide this technology to institutions. We're not providing a box product and saying, here you go, and everybody gets the same one. Because of technology now, you can create much more personalized experiences. And I think it's really important that we take into account different profiles of different people when creating financial products of the future. And being able to be more flexible and being able to give education, and really kind of pushing the buttons of, hey, you've just had a salary increase. Have you thought about investing? And if you haven't, here's some information that will help. So I think there's a huge role to play, particularly, with banks who've got the majority of the market share, to be bringing, not just women, but any kind of minority group to kind of support them in taking that next step, which actually then sets them up much better for the future. So it's something that, I'm really passionate about. As I said, my experience before was very negative of what, investing is. So I kind of, use this platform to be like, hey, it is for everybody. The cost of running an investment management service has dropped so significantly as a result of technology. So again, it's the win-win-win of, you can help people really take control of their financial services by building this into that kind of saving and investing experience. And yeah, I think, as a woman, it's something that I talk about and I want to share with as many people as possible, because I don't want anybody to feel the way that I felt. And I think we as an industry can change that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because there's your personal story, and there's also maybe a moral. It would be nice that women, possibly other minorities, are also included in that. But eventually, wow, it's such a boon for banks, right? If people who are just idly sitting, and especially when interest are zero, if you can unlock this potential for them, and like I said, there's other things which probably matter most, but that must appeal to the financial providers, right?
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. And, if you look at the numbers, and, women are much more likely to put their money in savings rather than investments. Like, let's do something about that. Say banks make money, the customer makes money, as long as it's done in the right way. And we talk about long-term investments here. We're not talking about stock trading or anything like that. I think it can be a really positive society impact, actually.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a no-brainer. I'm sure with your contribution and everything else, it's going this way. Let's talk now more in details about, you mentioned the toolkit and your activities that help towards this mission. What would you say is the main marketing challenge you face at the moment?
I think for us, it's really the balance between brand awareness and lead generation. So I think it's really particular in a startup to just go chasing after leads. But you have to remember that in, a B2B enterprise environment, it would be lovely if this happened, but no one's going to click on a display ad and then sign a 6-figure deal 2 days later. That's just not how it's going to work.
Sure.
So, particularly when you're starting out and you're only kind of a few years old, then you've really got to balance we need to be seen by people, we need to be understood by people, we've got to get our communications right and our proposition right, and at the same time be building that pipeline for the future, but not being so impatient with it that it's not a success if that doesn't turn into lead in a few weeks. And the experience that we've kind of had is we went too far one way, then we went too far the other way, and now I think we are striking that balance between the channels that we know now can work for us, and also kind of testing a few others, but making sure that we're building both that brand awareness and building the pipe for the future.
And I guess that's your role as a CMO, and it's never ending. Well, I hope maybe one day you nail it and that's it. We just get the money, but it might be a long time away. So yeah, what could you tell us a bit more about the channels you're exploring and what you think works best without disclosing trade secrets?
Yeah, sure. No, I don't think it's trade secrets. LinkedIn is a really big driver for us, particularly when you're working with, I guess, high value prospects. You know exactly who they are. We know who we want to target. For us, keeping that wastage down is key. We want to be seen by execs in the banking space. We can do that on LinkedIn. That's great. It also really combines well with our content-led strategy, because you don't need to do just kind of two-dimensional ads. It really can be about high quality content. Press is another really big thing for us. So we do a lot of our own research, and then do press releases, and that tends to do pretty well. Events were a good driver for us, and obviously that's been a bit of a challenge in terms of the marketing strategy. We saw a lot of peaks when we went to events. So now we're really looking at, what can we do internally? Obviously the webinar piece, but trying not to do too many, given everybody's got about 10 webinars coming into their email inbox every day. And then also, the partnerships piece is really key. We leverage our ecosystem with our clients. So working with them to really come up with, new stories and new applications is a good way for us to reach a new audience as well.
And can I ask a bit more about the content? What what are the main themes, or how do you define the stories, and how do you find also the resources to produce what you have to produce?
Yeah. So we really focus on, I guess, the challenges that we know that our customers have. A lot of it is kind of future gazing. A lot of it is thought leadership. So we try not to sell the product at any point with any of our content. It really is about how can we add value. And that's a combination of the proprietary research that we do, desk research, and then also the clients that we speak to and prospects as well. So that's been a really core part of the strategy, is making sure that it's value adding. And then, we kind of share that across the channels as well.
All right, great. And if I could ask then now, so if we look at your customers, so institutional customers' point of view, what would be the advice, the top advice that you give them for a legacy financial firm that wants to innovate, digitalize its offer, something like whatever is the key for them?
Yeah, focus on what you're good at. We have a lot of conversations, and it's not necessarily that we're the right person for every single prospect that we speak to. But, if you're building an investment management proposition, this is what we do, and it's not what you do. So it's really kind of focus, know what you're good at, ask those questions, understand it. If it's a core part of your proposition, it might be worth, doing yourselves. But actually with something like this, where it can add on to your existing product set, let the experts do the work. And I think that's been really kind of clarifying, particularly within the prospecting process, is to really understand, where do your strengths lie? What do you want to get out of this? And where do we fit into that?
And I guess there's also this trend, which luckily for you and for them is kind of reversing. Like typically banks would, I guess it's a bit too caricatural, but too simple. But let's put it this way: typically banks would like to internalize, or at least they used to internalize. Do you see now that they're more open to partnership rather than building their own technology?
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely.
Education there as well.
Yeah, and it's been a bit of a journey for them as well, right? There are 4 different ways that you talk about doing, I guess, digital transformation if you're going to do it. One is you don't do anything. Two is that you just buy the technology from a software vendor, and the problem that you have there is it doesn't update, and then you just kind of have it, and then you don't know what you're just building more legacy on top of legacy. Third is that you acquire, so you can buy a technology provider. Really hard to integrate within existing infrastructures, and there's plenty of examples of that. Or the fourth is to partner, and I think that's something that's really gained traction over the last kind of few years, because so many of those high profile projects that have been very, very expensive just haven't delivered the outcomes that they wanted to. So the partnerships piece kind of lowers the risk internally, it lowers the cost, and it also means that you are getting this kind of continuous evolution piece. As I said, we're not selling a product, we're selling a platform, so we'll continue to update that platform as the market changes, as customer needs changes, and because of the way that we integrate, therefore you'll get all of those updated products and services as they develop over the next few years. So that legacy piece kind of falls away within that kind of approach.
Yeah, and I guess as well, yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like as we see technology advancing so quickly, building something would seem scary to me. Anyway, it's not that I'm trying to pitch, to promote something, but it seems like technology itself it's a specialist thing, which is very different from having IT infrastructure, which is what typically financial institutions have. Yeah, I mean, we've covered, most of it, but I want to ask a few final questions about your industry and marketers in general. So, what are you most excited about right now in your industry, in terms of technology or developments or regulation?
For me it's the experience of the customers. So I think this piece of bringing saving and investing can have a huge impact, and I'm just so excited about that, because it can be done in so many different ways. As I said, you can create unique product sets for lots and lots of different types of people, and my biggest kind of fear is people not getting their hands on the technology soon enough, and that causing problems later in life, because pensions, the state pension's not going to cover us, it's not going to sort us all out. So the quicker that we get this technology into the hands of people and we educate them, the impact is so material to what your life looks like in future. So I think the sector has already done some brilliant things about making sure that people have much more control over their finances and their savings, and we have roundups, meaning that people are saving without even thinking about it anymore. You've got the likes of Pension Bee, so I can see my pension now and I can add to it every month, which I didn't even know where it was before. And I think this is kind of the next evolution that definitely I'm very focused on, is then how do we get to that investment piece, and how do we make sure that people's savings aren't being eaten up by inflation and sat in savings accounts that get 0.1% that they could do something with. So that's what I'm really excited about, is seeing that change be implemented, ideally at the financial institution level, where they've got access to so many people. It can have a massive difference.
All right, great. And last question is about your fellow marketers. Any top tips for typical B2B fintech companies for their marketing that you want to share?
Customer, just focus on the customer, and it's something that I sometimes wish I should just write in capital letters on the wall. Is it's really easy to get distracted by things sometimes, but always bringing it back. I think it really helps having a team that everybody's on the same page with that. So if one of you forgets, then the other person goes, oh, hold on, wait, does this work for them? I think it's key. It's really key in B2B not to get distracted by creating pieces that you think will do well versus what actually helps the customer.
No, I relate to that, and it's actually not as it sounds simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds, because also when you're in the execution of it, you might be well. It's easy to take to go sideways, and lose track of the end goal. So, thank you for the advice. And as this was it mainly. I'm just finishing with a few questions that are more personal, and first of all, maybe we can talk about activities or hobbies or a passion that your listeners may not know about, and you want to tell us?
Yeah, sure. I play hockey. I love that. That's great. It's on hold at the moment, but hopefully it'll get started soon. And I also have a side project with a friend of mine called Best Intentions, which is a community-based network to help people get started investing. So the whole investing piece really takes over my entire life, both professionally and personally. But it's something that I really, really care about. And it just kind of creates a safe space for people to ask those stupid questions that aren't really stupid and get them over that kind of hurdle of not having the confidence to get started. So that's something that I'm very passionate about.
So yeah, you must be, because as I do video, when I have to do holiday videos or something like that, I'm definitely not very keen. Reminds me of work. So well done you. If you were to choose a different career path, anything, what would it be?
It would probably be something around graphic design. My dad is an artist. He's brilliant. I'm not. But I do wonder if there might be some creativity that I haven't found in there yet. So I'd probably go and explore that route, I think.
Okay, and it's still about one of my previous guests, Rick Vernes, is a fintech designer, and he was telling us about the mix of creativity and science as well. So
interesting.
It makes sense. You could still combine both even there.
Yeah.
But I think you're in a pretty good spot. And lastly, as we're coming out of the lockdown, what would be your favorite place for holidays?
Oh, Cornwall. I can't wait to get down to Cornwall, get on the beach, dip my toes in the sea, and get a crab sandwich. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh, there you go. Well, I hope the dream becomes a reality pretty soon. Wonderful. Melanie, thank you so much. It was really great having you. Thank you for sharing your insights.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to our guests who make this possible. Subscribe to never miss an episode. As this is a new broadcast, if you could give us a 5-star review on iTunes and your favorite podcast player, that would be great. Let's work together to accelerate fintech towards the 2030s.